Hey, music fans, there are some great concerts headed this way. Don't miss out on all these shows in Atlanta. Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. Zach Brown Band at State Farm Arena. And Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Head to LiveNation.com to get your tickets now. That's LiveNation.com.
Good sleep should come naturally, and with the new Natural Hybrid mattress, it can. A collaboration between Lisa and West Elm, the Natural Hybrid is expertly crafted from natural latex, natural wool, and certified safe foams to elevate your sleep sanctuary and support a greener tomorrow. Breathable organic cotton and moisture-wicking Joma wool consistently provide cool and comfortable slumber. Every purchase helps fuel Lisa's work with shelters and those in need. Visit lisa.com to learn more. That's LEESA.com.
Wine and Crime contains graphic and explicit content which may not be suitable for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where today 3 friends don't chug wine, do chat true crime, and maybe on occasion unleash their worst Minnesotan accents. We have a special bonus holiday episode for you today where I sat down with a couple other amazing folks in the true crime podcasting industry to just talk about the ins and outs of podcasting, some cases that haunt us, some dream collaborations, dream teams that we would assemble to work with. And we had a really, really fun time connecting and cannot wait for you to hear what we talked about today. And I hope you will be inspired to check out their shows as well. So buckle up, tune in, and enjoy this little holiday treat.
I'm Javier Leiva with the Pretend podcast.
I'm Whitney St. Andre with Navigating Advocacy.
And I'm Amanda Jacobson with Wine and Crime.
And if you don't recognize some of these voices, it's because we are 3 badass podcasts simulcasting on our own feeds to tell you about our show and kind of go behind the scenes to see how we put all these crazy shows together. And for some of you who don't know, the podcast community, especially the indie true crime podcast community, is a very, very tight-knit group.
It is, especially if you know Josh Hallmark, who was the brilliant mind behind this idea to hook us all up together and have us all meet both in person over the years and now virtually and do a fun little like true crime conversation crossover hangout.
Yeah, Josh is really the glue or the thread that ties us all together.
Yes.
He's just so amazing.
It's like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
And Josh, he's at the top. A lot of people just don't realize that all these true crime podcasts, they're being, like the puppet master. Josh
That's accurate.
is at the
He
top.
did tell me I have to find 4 people to like complete my tier and then have them find 4 people. Josh, I had no idea you were MLMing us.
I know.
I am a proud owner of a pair of LuLaRoe leggings, I will say, but I bought them secondhand. So
Then it doesn't count.
it doesn't count. It doesn't count. Did you watch that documentary, Lula Rich?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Every time I watch a documentary about a con artist like that, I'm like, I wish I would have done it first. Yeah.
I love it. Did you watch Chimp Crazy
No,
on
but
HBO?
I want to. Yeah.
Yes.
It looks like Tiger King 2.
It is. Whitney.
Hold on. Have you recently watched The Kings of Tupelo?
No.
Oh, I've heard it's good.
It's on Netflix and it is just as unhinged as Tiger King.
Really?
Well-
You're the second person to recommend that. So now I got to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only 3 episodes, so it's a quick binge. But yeah.
Well, let's
with
fucking
Elvis
wrap this up
impersonators.
so I can go to what?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
we gotta
Awesome.
watch that.
Okay, well, good. I have
Yeah.
the rest of my day scheduled.
So today, what we want to do is really talk about our origin stories because these are 3 very different shows, very different shows and with different audiences. And I think you guys are going to love to find out what all these podcasts are about. So why don't we just start like with Whitney? Tell me a little bit about your show because your show, Navigating Advocacy, that's not what your show was about at the beginning, right? So like, how has your show evolved like since you started the whole thing?
Well, we started as your typical true crime podcast. In the pandemic, we had nothing to do, but my family isolated, my best friend and co-host Melissa, her family isolated, but we cheated the system a little bit where we'd have Wednesday family dinners and all 8 of us would get together. We both have boys, 2 boys each from now 18 to 9. And so it was just a lot of chaos all the time. Well, in the pandemic, we'd get together. Melissa and I would sit at the dinner table and talk about all the things we'd listened to, we read, all those things. And in full transparency and honesty, we would day drink sometimes.
Oh,
and
hell yeah. Hi, Wine and Crime here. Let's go.
Yep. I wanted to, I talked Melissa into recording our conversations at one point and said, why don't we just do our own podcast? If we're listening, let's just record what we're talking about anyway. And she is an introvert. She was really hesitant, but that day drinking really helped me out there. So we created Cults, Crimes, and Cabernet. That used to be our name. And we covered everything from cults to serial killers to suspicious deaths. Anything that caught our attention, we were covering. And both of us are volunteer-based people. So if there's something that needs to be done, we're the first people to sign up for it, whether that's our children's school, in the community. That's just who we are as a person. And when that was taken away in COVID, we were trying to figure out a way to fulfill that need within our own personalities. So we reached out to a family in West Texas. It's in San Angelo, Texas, the Brandon Lawson's family, and wanted to go out and see where this man went missing. Because if you listen to Brandon's story on most podcasts, they talk about him disappearing in woods. And there's not a lot of places in Texas that have true woods. I mean, there's like mesquite trees and cacti, and it's not
wide
woods.
open spaces.
Exactly. So we wanted to see what they were talking about. And West Texas is a lot of desert, so it didn't make sense to me. So we went out there, and being on that site and meeting with the families, it really shifted the way we started consuming true crime and the way we started working with families. And it was an evolution. Like, we just learned what we were doing wasn't right, or we felt it wasn't right anymore because of the volunteer aspect of what we do. So we rebranded. And it took a little while for us because we really loved our name. I'm a sucker for a good alliteration, you know? Yeah. And we decided to rebrand. That's when we became Navigating Advocacy, because we're still learning. We're trying to learn the proper ways to do things or ways to help in other ways, and learning about language. And it's just this constant flow of education. And that's kind of where we're at now.
That's such a cool thing about podcasting in general, is that, you know, that's your baby. It evolves as you evolve as people. And you know, the podcasts that see some of the most success are the ones that bring your unique, authentic selves into the show. And, you know, human beings are complex, and we have the capacity to change and to learn and to grow. And it's really, really cool to see your show like reflecting that process along with you in real time. I think that that's such a cool thing to model to the people that listen as well, that like, at any point, you can shift directions, you can shift gears, you can get passionate about different things, you can find what connects with you deeply and like follow that pull. I think that's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to. If you don't if you don't feel that way, it's okay too. This is just our journey that we're sharing with you.
Yeah, and I think that the true crime landscape has changed so much.
A lot.
What years did you guys start? I started in
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
2017.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we launched right after the first you-know-who win of the election.
Yeah.
And our show, Wine and Crime, was very much like a response to everything is garbage and our mental health is in the shitter. And guess what? Still is, babes. But I mean, yeah, it's very similar, Whitney, where it's like best friends with a shared interest and a love of a little bit of boozing, and just diving into stories that, as consumers of true crime, we wanted to focus on short form. We're not serialized. We know our limits and our skill set. And like, I have so much respect for people who can build content, but also who just can do the intense research and investigation. Like I always come back to Josh as an example of this with true crime bullshit, where like the absolute mind, body, and soul that goes into true crime bullshit and everything that they've uncovered about Israel Keys.
So much research.
It's so much research. That their team is incredible. Like they go so deep, and that is not my skill set. My skill set is finding a story that I connect with, whether there is maybe a humorous connection, because we're true crime comedy, which is like kind of a weird thing to navigate and doesn't necessarily feel like they go together, and has been a line to toe that is not always easy. But where we bring in the comedy is really about ourselves and like sharing our stories. And you know, you'll be surprised at how many times you can connect to either, of course, a victim, but also like a perpetrator in some instances, or some, you know, element of what you're talking about. And that's where we kind of bring the comedy in, or just find like these absurd stories that...
Well, it's the levity, right?
Yes.
It's such a heavy topic.
It's such a heavy topic, and we launched at such a heavy time, and then history just continues to repeat itself, that we really wanted to connect over like these weird police blotters and weird articles that people send us, and talk about them without making the long form investment that other phenomenal shows have made. So we're not serialized. We do everything kind of episodic under a theme. So we've covered really anything that you can think of, and it's really been a wild journey and very fun.
It's kind of interesting because this started off as a hobby for me, like something that I was doing on the weeknights, you know, like if my kid was in a game or like sporting thing, or on the weekend, you know, and now it's become my full-time job.
Right.
And it is so crazy to see that transformation. I'm sure.
When did that shift, like how far in did that shift happen for each of you?
It happened like 3 weeks ago for me.
Congratulations.
I know, but it wasn't completely voluntary. You know, I had a full-time job, and that came to an end, and now
that was Lucy's journey. We all had full-time jobs, and Lucy was actually laid off a few years into the show, and it aligned with, you know, the show picking up some good momentum, and we were able to shift. But like that is a scary plunge to take. I left my job.
I was just laid off. Like,
it happens.
It was crazy. Yeah. But this is like go time, you know, like it's now or never, and there's so much momentum, and we have all built this great community of, you know, our listeners are very loyal and committed, and why not? Let's make this thing go, you know? Like,
what about you, Whitney? When did that shift for y'all?
We shifted to full-time podcasters probably a year and a half in. Now, to be fair, we have super supportive husbands that allow us to do this. It's not that we've turned it into a full-time career, meaning salaries are available. Right. But we were able to really transition into making this our full-time passion about a year and a half in.
That's so exciting. It's awesome. But it really is like, it is a scary plunge. And I feel like we get questions a lot all the time from people who listen to the show and are exploring podcasting for themselves. And Lucy and I often, we have like two things that we will typically say. One is don't do it.
I know. I always tell people not to do it.
But, you know, that's kind of like my joke response. I think that if you are passionate about something and you feel like your voice will lend something to that arena, then like, fuck yeah, do it, go for it. But if you are building it, if you're making your plan to make money, to have it be your full-time job, it's really, really, really hard. And
it can happen, but it can happen. You're going to spend years trying to make it happen.
Wine and Crime was just us, the hosts, for, you know, the first 4 or 5 years of the show, while we were pounding the pavement, building the advertising base, like, and we're still independent. Now we do have help with our ad sales, but like we were doing all of that in-house, all of the social media, all of the editing. I mean, it was, and we were also working. So it was a true labor of love. And now we're in a place all of these years later where we do have, you know, we're a company, we have a small staff. We're able to pay ourselves and our team and like provide health insurance and some
Oh, that's
benefits.
awesome. Yeah.
And I'm not saying it to brag. I'm saying it because it's rare and it's hard and it's terrifying, because then you get to a space where it's like, okay, I'm counting on me. My husband is counting on me.
But now all these
my
other
staff is counting on me.
Yeah.
So
The pressure is different.
the pressure is different. And so if you are thinking about podcasting, we encourage you not to enter that space with like a financial gain
Yeah.
mindset.
You're putting a lot more work into it than you're getting back. And that's what, and nobody likes commercials. Like, I don't like commercials. But
I don't either.
But, and the fact that some of our patrons are helping us out, like there's a lot of work that goes into this. Like you said, all these things that we like. For me, one new cost that I was not expecting is like unprecedented legal bills. Like
Oh
these things,
my God.
I'm just saying
yes.
these things don't come for free, and like we're doing this full time, and so yeah, there's a lot of work that comes into this, and like ads, they help make it happen.
We're like
So.
in the process of negotiating. I say this in a very light term. We're not like going to court, but a lawsuit for a photo that we use that
Oh,
we
really?
sourced, but I guess they were not
I've had that
happy.
happen too. Yeah.
And the photo is funny because it is the gravesite of a certain president's ex-wife on a certain golf course. And so, of course,
gosh.
it's like their people that are mad about it. So it's like,
gosh.
unexpected costs
Yeah.
are real. You have to be really careful about how you are sourcing your information. And, Josh has experienced this. Like, there's plagiarism in the community, unfortunately, and just being really, really careful about how you navigate where you're getting your information, how you're presenting your information, and being really transparent about how you're sourcing your information is also very key. You never know who is data farming and trying to find where you fucked up and then get a paycheck from it.
Yeah. Oh man, there are so many vultures in this field.
So many vultures, and they are picking at the corpses, baby. I got nothing left to give.
So when we were kind of planning this episode, we were coming up with these fun things to talk about, and we have this magical list of like prompts for us. So I say let's kick it off. Let's do one. I think one that really resonated for us was this idea of memorable first. Like, what is the first case that truly kept you up at night?
Oof.
Like, which is the one that haunts you? Because we've all been there, right? Where you're like you said, Amanda, last night you were just staring at the ceiling, right?
Yo. Whitney, go first because I need
I got
time.
one. I got one too. If you don't
Javier,
have
you
one.
go first this time. You go first this time, Javier.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that one, and I remember I was I did the series called The Pest. And it was about these gang stalkers. This one guy went on Twitter and he said that he did not think Norm Macdonald was funny.
Whoa, hot take.
I know, it's like a hot take, but it shouldn't.
That's pretty benign.
Snowball.
No.
Yeah, it snowballed into this crazy gang stalking scenario where all these people were like dogging this guy, but then it turned into like they were doxing him.
Oh no!
Then they were They sent the police to his house 40 times. They swatted his house 40 times.
Oh my
God! So he would be woken up at night with guns pointed to his head. I mean, like this was like. It just went so crazy, and these people were so scary. And so I put together these 3 episodes about the pests, and my wife and I were like, I don't think we should release these because
what if
these
you
people
become
are
a
really
target?
scary. We don't. Right, exactly. And so I was like, well, what if I just put it out on Patreon? Like they'll never find it, right? So I release it on Patreon, and I go on vacation, and I decided that I was just not going to check my phone all the time.
Good for you.
I snuck a peek, and I realized that the pests found the episodes on Patreon. They ripped it. They put it on their dark web forum, and all hell broke loose. And I had that sinking feeling that like, oh shit,
Did anything happen, or were you guys?
Actually, the pests really liked my reporting, and
All
they thought
right.
it was great.
Okay.
So crisis averted.
That
So like
is-
best case scenario there.
I know, but I was really sweating that one.
That's fucking terrifying. And I mean, you've got a family.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, and you're not just dealing with one person, you're dealing with like a bunch of anonymized like people that just have an axe to grind. So yeah, that was probably and I've done some pretty scary stuff, but I mean, I've been in a cult and all that, but like for some reason, that's the one that really, really freaked me out.
We're going to circle back to I've been in a cult.
Well, just for a day, not
just to get research.
He just infiltrated, you know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Okay,
so what about you, Whitney?
Put a pin in that.
Yeah.
So this question was really hard for me because I grew up watching wildly inappropriate things like most of us did that were born in the 80s and 90s. I don't know. I don't want to age anyone here, but I was born in the 80s, so I'm pretty old.
Same.
We didn't really have rules when it came to like what stuff we consumed. So I watched like the movie Seven at, I want to say like 9 years old, like wildly inappropriate. And none of that kind of stuff kept me up at night. It didn't give me nightmares or anything like that. So when I transitioned into this world of true crime, there hasn't been one specific case that keeps me up at night. I'm really good at compartmentalizing the information, but I will stay up for thinking I've disappointed someone with the story I've told. I worry a lot about disappointing family members that we work with because this whole season we're exclusively working with family members on episodes. I'm worried about putting out misinformation, like all of the strange things related to true crime as opposed to the actual details of a story. That's what keeps me up at night is disappointing someone.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
There are two for me. One I covered on our show, and it's something that I'm also very passionate about. Is I'm an abolitionist. I am not a fan of the police personally, and so cases that include police violence and like the targeting of Black and brown people really fuck me up. And we unfortunately, Minneapolis is where I live. And so Philando Castile for many years was kind of a household name. And then George Floyd became a household name and real faces to a revolution toward collective liberation. But I covered the Philando Castile case, and this was a man who was driving with his girlfriend and their baby in the car. He was like a school lunch employee. He was just like a lovely person. They got pulled over for a taillight. He declared that he had his conceal and carry, that he had a weapon in the car, like he followed every rule. And the officer opened fire on him while he was sitting in the car getting his wallet, as he was asked to do to produce ID. And he died in front of his girlfriend and child. And his girlfriend, in a moment of power and quick thinking, opened her Facebook and started live streaming what was happening. And without her act of bravery, the police could easily just own the narrative of what had happened there. And as they often do, spun any reality that they saw fit. Again, we saw this act of bravery repeated, and we see it many times, like in the George Floyd case. To be that brave to go live when someone is dying, and it's like the only way that you can intervene in any way, or at least expose the truth. The cases like that just sit in my heart in a way that I can't really explain. I mean, it's just such injustice. And, we're taught since we're children that like you're supposed to be able to trust police and investigators. And, it's like there's a level of betrayal and systemic violence and systemic racism that it's just like this huge onion. You just peel back these layers, and we feel so small in terms of how do we make changes here? How do we keep this from happening? And, there are so many incredible people, activists that are working tirelessly to either abolish or at least completely reform these systems. And I just think that work is so important and incredibly noble. So cases like that really stick with me. And then I don't even know if we have fully covered this case because it's really been covered by so many podcasts, but a specific soundbite associated with the Delphi murders, when the suspect tells them to like go down the hill. That clip, that audio clip, I've heard it twice, and it gives me fucking chills. Just to imagine like the fear that those girls must have been experiencing in that moment. And his voice is so eerily calm and authoritative, and it just absolutely fucking chills me to my core. And I like, to the point where I keep up on news with that case. And, you know, they have a suspect in custody now, and there are a lot of really, you know, exciting developments happening with that case. But I almost have to be mindful of like listening to any podcast about it, because I don't want to fucking hear that audio. I don't know what it is about that motherfucker's voice.
It's haunting. Yeah.
It's haunting. That shit keeps me the fuck awake at night.
Well, he was found guilty.
Oh, yes. Whew.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
But going back to your body cam and Facebook Live comment, I mean, I think that technology has changed so rapidly, and it's changed the way that we cover stories, because now, as you know, when I worked in news, police didn't wear body cam. I mean, we didn't even have Facebook, I don't think. Maybe we did, but there was definitely no like live option. You know, everything that if I wanted to go live, I needed like a big microwave truck with a big pole and stuff like that. So like the fact that citizens can now broadcast to the world like instantly, or I as a journalist could request the body cameras, it just changes the dynamics of storytelling, but also about the way police approach scenes and the way they react to things. So I just think it's really interesting the way that technology has not only changed law enforcement, but the way we cover things as independent, you know, journalists. So.
Oh, for sure. And just as civilians, as citizens, like we now have the capacity to expose truth in ways that, you know, positions of power were always able to suppress.
Right.
And not to say that there isn't still wild suppression like all over the internet and technology, et cetera. But it's a really fascinating element where anyone, you know, basically every phone now is a smartphone. So everybody has a video camera in their pocket. Almost everybody has the capacity to share an event in real time live. And that was just, like you said, that was not a thing. That was barely a thing 10 years ago.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean,
wild.
those kinds of developments are really, really fascinating to follow and to see happening.
Yeah.
Right. I also worked in the news back in the day, and you can't control the narrative anymore because everyone can share what is happening there. It is truly amazing what technology has done for getting information out.
We're going to take a short break, and after the break, we're going to discuss some more fun topics. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey, music fans, there are some great concerts headed this way. Don't miss out on all these shows in Atlanta. Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. And Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Head to LiveNation.com to get your tickets now. That's LiveNation.com.
We have one more act for you this evening. I don't even need to say his name. Mr. Bob Dylan.
A Complete Unknown is now a Golden Globe and Critics' Choice nominee for Best Picture.
Bobby, what do you want to be?
Whatever it is they don't want me to be.
Timothy Chalamet astonishes as Bob Dylan in one of the best performances of the year.
Through the bums of dime in your prime.
And critics rave Edward Norton is absolutely fantastic.
70,000 people are here, and Bobby is the reason for it.
This Christmas,
They just want me singing Blowing in the Wind for the rest of my life.
don't miss the movie critics are hailing 5 stars.
To be on your
It's pure cinematic magic.
Turn it down.
play loud.
And named to AFI and the National Board of Review's top 10 films of the year.
Make some noise, BD. Track some mud on the carpet.
A Complete Unknown. Only in theaters Christmas Day. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
It's the Knix Best of 2024 sale, going on now at Knix.com.
Don't miss incredible deals on life-changing leak-proof underwear, unbelievable everyday bras, and more from the #1 leak-proof brand in North America. Save big, like 30% off bras, 40% off leak-proof, 50% off tops and bottoms, 60% off swim at Knix.com. That's KNIX.com. Millions of women have made the switch to Knix's revolutionary period underwear, and there's never been a better time for you to try them. During the best of 2024 sale, save up to 40% on super comfy, machine washable, and stylish leak-proof undies. Plus, shop other year-end clearance deals like 30% off bras, 50% off tops and bottoms, 60% off swim, and more. Stock up on your Knix favorites or try something new during the Knix Best of 2024 sale. But hurry, these deals are only good while supplies last. That's KNIX.com. Hurry, the sale ends soon and sizes will sell out. Go to Knix.com. That's KNIX.com.
When we started coming up with this idea of collaborating, we came up with a bunch of fun prompts, and one of them is I thought was pretty hard. If I had unlimited resources, so if you had a full investigative team with an unlimited budget, what cold case or unsolved mystery would you tackle first? And I really struggled with this one. I mean, my first thought was D.B. Cooper, because like everybody's looking for D.B. Cooper.
Yeah.
But I'm not so interested in D.B. Cooper personally. I don't know why. Because I interviewed a hijacker who actually jumped out of the plane with the cash and actually survived to live to tell the story. And I thought that was way more interesting than D.B. Cooper, who...
Yeah.
So I'm not so interested in D.B. Cooper. But if I had to pick, I think I would go to a story I covered extensively, which was the case of Frank Abagnale Jr. He's the guy from Catch Me If You Can. So for those of you who don't know, Frank Abagnale Jr. lied about his life story. He never really did the things he said he did. He
One
was
of
never
the most successful con artists of all time.
I know, it's very meta because he's still a con artist, except he's
but
just
he works
not the
for the government.
Right, he does not work for the government. That's a lie too.
It is?
Yes, the whole thing is a lie. It's all a lie. Yeah. He was never, he did dress up as a pilot and got some free flights, but he was never a lawyer. He was never a doctor. He never worked for the FBI. He was never a professor. It's all a lie. He's built this like decades long career.
I can't believe I'm still getting duped by that motherfucker all these years later.
We all are.
What the fuck? I really thought that consulting thing after his arrest and imprisonment was
bullshit.
real.
He says he works at the FBI Academy teaching ethics. It's all bullshit.
Gosh, Amanda, listen to Pretend. You would know this.
I am the worst.
Okay.
I'm also so gullible. You can tell me anything and I'd be like, wow.
Me too, yeah. But podcasters don't listen to other podcasts.
We don't have time and we don't commute.
And why would we? Like, we marinate in all this dark stuff. Like, why would we want to listen to more true crime? But the reason why I picked this one, because I thought, to me, it's a little bit of an unsolved case, because if he wasn't a pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, a professor, or working for the FBI, then what the heck was he doing?
Right.
And we kind of found out some of the things that he was doing during that time period, like scamming doctors and realtors with these investment scams. But there's like 20 to 30 years that like we would love to fill in the gaps, because this guy was definitely a con artist. He was definitely fooling people. It's just not the con artist that we thought he was.
Wow. I'm shook.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks and Leo DiCaprio lied to me.
I know. And Steven Spielberg, don't forget him.
Oh,
I'm sure they knew that's the worst part. I'm sure that Hollywood knew that it was all baloney. And
they have to tell the most interesting version. I mean, the movie is fucking great. It's a phenomenal movie.
I get shit on a daily basis about this. They're like, dude, it was a movie. Of course they made some things up. I'm like, no. They made the whole thing up.
Right.
Like it wasn't even based on a true story. It was based on
the
some
lies he
man's
told.
fantasy.
Yeah,
exactly.
What about yours, Whitney?
I can't pick a single case. That's my problem is if we have an unlimited budget, I want to go big and take every piece of DNA that's out there and test every single piece of DNA out there, use the technology of today and solve them all. I can't narrow it down to one because give me an unlimited budget and I'm going to spend it.
Yeah, that's right. Super fair.
Yeah.
I am such a child of the 80s that mine will always, like my knee-jerk reaction to this question will always be JonBenet Ramsey.
Yeah.
That was...
That's your Roman Empire, right?
It's kind of my Roman Empire. And like, I think that younger folks, younger listeners who were not kids or teens or preteens in the late 80s, early 90s, media frenzy still exists very much now, but like tabloids were at their peak of like problematic existence when we were that age. And so when I tell you this little girl was plastered on every magazine, in every supermarket, on every TV channel, you could not escape the image of JonBenet Ramsey. And even in that story still is very captivating to audiences today. I mean, we just got 2 new JonBenet Ramsey documentary series that just came out. And, you know, I don't want to get sued, so I'm not going to go too deep into my theories, but like, it's a weird case. It was botched by investigators from the very beginning. The DNA was fucked. Everything was muddied. The crime scene was not handled properly at all. And it's one of those cases where it's like, this is a family that does have unlimited resources, and we still don't fucking know. We still don't fucking know. And how important that handling of evidence and chain of command, and, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a small town and the cops know the family. It doesn't fucking matter. You have to treat those crime scenes with the utmost care and vigilance, because that is, in my opinion, the most critical moment, is that first assessment of a crime scene and that collection of evidence. And as we can see with the JonBenet Ramsey case, if you don't collect it properly, it really doesn't matter how much money and unlimited resources you have. If the evidence isn't there, you're fucked.
Right. Those first hours are so critical to making sure that the case goes right. I mean, imagine like a lot of law enforcement. I've worked on cases where I don't know if they ever said this, but they kind of assume it was a suicide. You know, you can't assume it's a suicide, because if you go in with that mindset, then you're missing out on any potential clues, and you can never recreate that. I mean, you could try, but we know that blood spatter sometimes is considered, could be junk science too. You know, like things aren't, you could replicate it, but nothing will replace the evidence that's at the scene.
And I mean, even DNA is not like the smoking gun that the true crime, you know, especially documentaries have made it out to be.
I'm working on a story right now because, you know, you would think that DNA is ironclad. Right. I mean, you can't, you know, you can't fake DNA. But now I'm working on a case of these DNA experts that have been either manipulating the data, excluding other DNA evidence. And it's amazing. I thought it was just this one woman who was accused of doing that. And then the more I look into it, I mean, this is like a problem.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't quote unquote fake DNA, but you can withhold it. You can manipulate it. You can improperly collect it. You can like, there's room for not only just human error, which, you know, even investigators are people with preconceived biases and ideas and thought processes that are going to guide an investigation. It is what it is. But yeah, even in the labs, like, shit can fucking happen. And there are bad actors in there too.
Well, and if you have a conclusion in mind and you have some DNA and then you have other DNA, but you only want, you know, to show this DNA because it's more convenient for the case, I mean, that creates a problem. To me, it never occurred to me that DNA could be also subjective.
1,000%. And that, to your point, is a problem in so many cases where like the investigators or whatever team is working on this has, you know, their version of events. And instead of letting the evidence guide them toward the conclusion, they want to use the evidence to fit the narrative that they are connected to. And we all do that. I mean, we speculate in our show all the time and like bend over backwards to try to make certain things align that might not align. But like, we're also very clear that we're not journalists and that we're speculating wildly. And it's a very hypothetical, like maybe it was this. We're not the ones that are fucking in the trenches, like trying to solve these crimes.
Right.
So, but that kind of process happens in a lot of investigations. At first glance, this is what we think happened. So we're going to try to find the pieces that fit that rather than let's look at the puzzle and let the puzzle fit together and then come to a conclusion. It's kind of a backwards way that we investigate crime, certainly in the U.S.
Yeah. So let's get on to our next topic, which is controversial cases. Are there any cases where you've had a change of heart or perspective after researching and even releasing your episodes?
Yes.
All right. Go. Hit us, Amanda.
Okay. Michael Peterson and his wife, Kathleen.
The staircase, right?
The staircase. Lucy, co-host of Wine and Crime, has a show on our subscriber platform called Spooky Little Bitch. And she has always been a skeptic on whether Michael Peterson did kill his wife. And I had always been like, he did it.
He did it? Yeah.
Dude's a creep. You're never going to change my mind. And she did an interview on an episode of Spooky Little Bitch with someone who is an expert in like forensics, but also specifically birds.
Owls?
And he talked a lot about the owl theory, which I had always laughed at, thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And after listening to that interview, I am no longer convinced that it wasn't an owl. I mean, there's evidence that they didn't include. There's bird poop. There was feathers. There was all kinds of shit that was actually like consistent with an owl attack.
Amanda, I'm with you on this one. So, I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. Actually, technically not even Raleigh. I live in between Raleigh and Durham. And this case takes place in Durham. Yeah. And in my backyard, we have a bunch of owls. I mean, I see them all the time. We're eating dinner and they're like swooping by. One day, and I love owls.
Of course.
I love owls. Like they even had the little baby owls. They go on the trampoline. They're super cute. Really awesome. But one day I'm like in the back porch, just sitting there with my daughter, and there was this owl staring at us. And it wasn't going hoo 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 hoo. It was going like I had never heard that sound before. And then it flapped its wing and flew close to us.
Nope.
Like intimidating us. And we're like, I told my daughter, I was like, get up, let's walk very quietly inside the house.
We're going inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't fuck with birds.
Out. And I all of a sudden that owl theory makes a little bit of sense. I don't know.
Honestly, like I'm going to send you the file for this interview because I was fucking blown away by the stuff that this guy pointed out that had been not
There's
included
like micro feathers.
Oh yeah,
right?
not included in the like overall evidence write-up of things that were not put in any of the documentaries or coverage on this case. I mean, obviously we know that so much documentary coverage is biased. It's just that it is what it is. I mean, even in our own shows, like we bring our theories and biases into our productions as well. We're human.
Everything, yeah.
But damn, I mean, I was like, there's no way you're going to convince me that this was a fucking owl.
Too.
Holy
it's
shit.
It's such a controversial true crime topic.
It's so polarizing. It's so polarizing. I'm like, at me.
I bet our listeners are like,
I know. Amanda's a Michael Peterson sympathizer. Yep. I famously hate women, and he didn't do it. Pull that clip out of context and start and make me go viral. Let's fucking go.
Oh, look,
cancel
the Reddit
me.
thread. There's a Reddit thread already.
There always is.
Oh man. How about you, Whitney? Do you have one?
Well, there's one that we covered. It's not really controversial because not many people have covered it. But after researching it, we had done a story about a woman in a small town in Arkansas. She was a woman of color. She had a child with a white man who was married to another person. This all came out after her murder, but her mother was murdered, and they tried to blame the murder on a lesbian couple, one of which was a woman of color that we know of. The other woman may have been a woman of color also, but we're not sure of that. But all the media coverage of it pointed to the fact that this couple was responsible for it's a super brutal murder, and her 3-year-old daughter found her. But we worked with the daughter, and we sent her our full episode, recorded it, everything we found research-wise that's out there. And she's like, you got this all wrong. Let me send you what I have. And the media was way wrong. I mean, like, this woman got convicted. She was then later exonerated of it. And all the charges were dropped against her, but the second woman in the relationship was never charged at all because they didn't have evidence. And it was all based off of planted evidence, and this murder weapon had been lost and then refound and retested and all kinds of crazy things like that. So that was a case for us that was particularly eye-opening about basically checking your sources, because just because it's in the news does not mean anything.
Right.
And we've all seen that happen. I mean, that's the danger with us in the podcasting world, is that, I do a lot of investigations, first-person accounts, that kind of stuff. But not all my stories are like that, right? Like sometimes I'm relying on articles that are being written about it. And if somebody gets the story wrong from the beginning, it has this snowball effect, because then somebody else picks it up and somebody else picks it up. And then it becomes true, even though it's not, right? And so that is... Like when you said, Whitney, I think you said earlier that, getting it wrong keeps you up at night. I mean, that keeps me up at night too, because there's so many ways that we could get the information wrong if we're not getting it firsthand, right? From the
yeah, and that's
source.
part of why I think the Wine and Crime format in this context does work, because, again, we're not investigative. So we are just pulling from the resources that are available to us on the internet, like newspapers.com is our best friend. But because the show is so conversational, we have the opportunity to flag, like, I read this in this article, I don't know if I agree with this, and then have that conversation.
Right.
But, like, media literacy is a challenge that everybody faces. I mean, I recently, it actually just came out today, we do these monthly episodes called Gossip at the Corpse Cart, and people will send us, like...
These are the best names.
I don't know. We just get drunk and say stupid shit. A segment that I do on there is just funny headlines, and I will cold read these articles that people send me that are just like about unhinged true crime or, just something really funny. And I had one sent to me that was about a corn fest in Iowa and how, like, somebody had to go to the hospital because they, like, shoved too much corn in their mouth. And I was like, and it was in Wisconsin. And I was like, oh, there's no way this isn't real. And as I'm reading it with Lucy and a guest that we had on the show, they were like, the photo for this is AI. He has, like, an extra weird finger. Something is going on. And I'm like, I'm usually so good about this kind of stuff. But because in this format, I cold read it. I see the headline and I'm like, this is funny. I want to just experience this in real time live on the show. So I didn't catch that. And I was, like, destroyed. Like, my whole world was falling apart, because we do talk about how important media literacy is and, like, being careful about your sources. And here I am reading something from, like, basically the Wisconsin version of The Onion with, like, an AI fucking picture.
It's getting harder and harder to tell what's real, though.
Oh, this was so obviously AI. I am ashamed. Really? Like, the second you see it, you would know. But I was just like,
we work so fast.
I thought it was so funny, and I was so in love with it that I, like, didn't want to believe that it could be fake. So I just didn't. And then was put in my place, which I appreciate.
I think another one of my controversial cases, I think that everyone will know, is Making a Murderer.
Yeah.
That one, Stephen Avery, it's you. If you only watched the Netflix and didn't look up anything at all, you were bound and determined after season 1 that he was innocent.
Yep.
And it was all fabricated, and the world is against Stephen Avery. And then you get season 2 and you're like, hold on, I have questions. And then you actually do research and you're like, I have way more questions now than ever before, because wow.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of those
for sure.
cases where it's like, I don't know for sure. I think he probably did do it, like, having had a similar experience that you had. But that's another one of those things where it's like the investigation fucking matters so much, because when mistakes or planted evidence or pushing a narrative, whatever, any of those things come into play, then you get the court of public opinion. I mean, this happened with JonBenet Ramsey. There's so much misinformation about that case that has been regurgitated so many times in the media that it's just taken at first glance as fact when it is inherently not true. And there's a lot of that with the Stephen Avery case as well. I think, Brendan Dassey got the short end of the stick and was definitely taken advantage of as a disabled person. Again, all of these biases that can come into play that really affect an investigation. And again, none of that means that they are innocent, but how we gather that evidence, how we get confessions, how we convict, how we take those cases to trial fucking matters. It matters so much. We have to do that shit with integrity, or we can have no trust in any of these fucking systems. Maybe they did get the right guy, but if they went about it in a fucking shady way, then it's all for fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Shit pisses me off.
Yeah. It's crazy how, I mean, sometimes as consumers of these documentaries or news in general, we don't have the time to research and like go, you know, and fact check everything that we've seen. You know, sometimes we have to like trust that some of this information is true. And boy, you know, like a lot of people either is cherry picked or they just like skew the details to the point where like it's not even true anymore. But I was thinking about the controversial cases. I think about one where I was personally duped, you know, because I don't see myself so much as a victim's advocate because I try not to take, you know, a side. I try to report things as neutral as possible. But there was this one case that I was working on, and it was about this like middle-aged couple. They were like the salt of the earth. They were religious, you know, this and that. And they said that they were the victims of the stalker, that their doctor's husband was stalking them and sending all these messages and, you know, the swatting, just like the case I told you before. And these people had been stalked and harassed for 2 years straight. And I believed them. Like they gave me no reason not to believe them. And then it all changed when I realized during the course of my investigation that the IP addresses for some of these harassing messages was coming from their own house.
The call was literally coming from inside the house.
Someone in that house was sending these messages. Like, and it could have been the mom, it could have been the dad, it could have been one of the adult kids. It was but I felt so betrayed, you know, because I actually spent 2 years before I ever broadcast or dropped the episode. I spent 2 years investigating this case, and I felt duped. And you could hear that during the course of my reporting, because it starts off like, hey, we got to find this guy you know, bring him to justice and all this stuff. And then during the course of the investigation, I was just like, are you fucking kidding me?
What season is that? I need to go back and listen to those episodes.
It's called The Stalker.
Okay.
Oh my God, I should know this. I want to say season 13.
Okay. I mean, if you search Pretend The Stalker.
The Stalker.
You'll
yeah,
find
I don't
it.
remember my own show. I kind of deleted.
We have hundreds of fucking episodes. People are always like, do you remember when the gal said this on this episode?
Yeah.
I'm like, y'all, no.
Delete.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast. I have no idea what I say the second after I've said it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're episodic too. So I'm like, no, I don't remember what we covered in season 2. Like, let me go to my list.
It's season 12, guys. Season 12.
All right, The Stalker in season 12. All right.
Season 12, yeah.
I cannot.
But yeah, that one sucked.
You put so much.
Well, it made for an interesting story, though, because...
It did, and you solved it.
Well, yeah, they ended up getting arrested and charged with 6 felonies after, before I released the series, I sent it to the detective working the case.
Yeah.
And 3 days later, a grand jury met, and they got arrested, and it's all crazy. I know, it was nuts.
But it is hard. I mean, another part of the reason why I... personally, in my true crime podcasting journey, shy away from that direct connection,
right,
is because I am like terminally empathetic and I get very connected very quickly. And the betrayal that you felt from like covering this story and being so deeply invested in helping this family and then discovering that like it was them all along. Nope, that would be like my last season of podcasting. I'm fucking done. My mental health cannot.
That teaches you to separate yourself a little bit from the subjects, because I've learned that, and all of us bring different perspective, right? Like, so Whitney's thing and her whole thing is, you know, victim advocacy, right? Like for me, I can't do that because sometimes in my experience, the victims, even though they mean very well, they see the story just from one vantage point.
Of course.
And they're convinced. I remember I did this one story and like the victim's family, like they were just convinced that this person was the killer or whatever. And it was just like, there was no talking them out of it, no matter what, you know, because that's what made sense to them. And so like, as an investigator, you almost have to like take a step back, talk to as many people as possible, because the truth is somewhere in between. But I try to keep a healthy distance, although like, it's really hard. You get attached to these people.
Right. And
know?
I mean, I imagine it would have to be excruciatingly hard to talk to a victim and believe their story, of course, and also have that separation and other information and an outside perspective that like communicating those perspectives, whether it's directly to their face or in the context of what you release in your show, and having it not be aligned with their exact experience and their perception of what had happened. And, you know, we're all, as Kamala Harris would say, you think you just fell out of a coconut tree? Like, we're all the product of all of our generational trauma and all of our experiences and everything that came before us that led us to these moments right now. And so that kind of shit will always infiltrate how we perceive our experiences and even the experiences of others. So that shit is very, very hard to navigate because you can't not be human.
I'm curious how Whitney handles that, because like, have you ever encountered a situation like that where you know that the victim is like just not intentionally like misleading you, but that they're just, have you ever witnessed that?
Yeah, those are the hardest interviews we have, working with families, because like you said, they perceive things a certain way. They're grieving, so they are feeling things that are different that may skew what they saw or what they heard or what they know. So we really have to lean hard into facts. And Javier does an excellent job of this. If you haven't listened to Pretend, go do it, because he is strictly fact-based. And he says, like, look, you said this, but this says this. And that's presenting all of the information at once. And I think that's where you have to really lean into those things of, the police report said this, but the family told me this, and let people kind of form their own opinions on the matter, which is how we handle things. Because we don't want to tell a family member that they're wrong.
Right.
And we don't want to say that the police report is wrong. This is just the information that has been given.
And it happens to conflict.
Yeah.
Correct.
As long as
How do you
you're
feel
not
about that?
withholding that. Right. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's just so hard, and you don't want to, again, tell families that they're wrong. I mean, there's a case that we haven't covered yet, but we've been working on for a very long time, where an uncle is suspected in the crime, and it becomes a very fine line, which you can't even really see the line. It's so fine, of how do you introduce this potential suspect without actually identifying him as a family member, where it can affect the investigation, it can affect the family dynamic and cause a lot of problems, but also still share this person's story. It's very complicated, and that's kind of why we are the way we are. Of like, we're trying to figure this out too, guys. Like, we're evolving with this and trying to learn too.
So we just talked about the cases that really changed our minds, which is kind of remarkable, right? When we think we're doing one thing and then we changed our minds. But what is the hardest part for you guys to make a true crime podcast that listeners just might not realize?
I think for us, the hardest part is that we are truly independent. We do not have a staff of anyone. So we research everything. We record everything. We edit everything. We manage our social medias. We set up the interviews. We do the interviews. We transcribe the interviews. We then write the scripts. So literally everything is done. This is a 40-hour-a-week plus job, 9 times out of 10. I mean, there's some episodes that take a little less time because there's a little less information out there. Honestly, the ones with less information out there take longer than the ones with a lot of information out there, because you have to dig deeper. So I think what people don't realize is they get an hour-ish show and they think that might take 3 hours to put together, when in all reality, it takes 40 hours of production and then to keep your audience engaged on top of that with social media, with scheduling, with administrative style work. That's even more. I think that's the hardest part, is you don't realize how much work it takes to put something together.
For sure. Yeah, I think for us, because it's short form and we cover a lot of cases, a lot of stuff that's like obscure and weird that's not covered at length, but then we also cover some pretty famous ones too. And just the format of our show does not allow for all of the details and the in-depth, reporting, investigating, all of that. So that's challenging to make sure we are providing a thorough but also cut for time version of some of these really twisty, turny, complex things that people are like, oh my gosh, please talk about Jean-Benet Ramsey, talk about XYZ. And it's like, we will touch on that. We will cover it to the best of our ability, but we don't have the time within the format of our show to be able to do that.
Right. And how often do you publish?
Every week. And then we have our Gossip at the Corpse Cart episode every month. And then we're putting out 2 shows monthly on our subscriber platform. Like, we're making a ton of content. And it is really hard work. I think, kind of to what Whitney was saying, sometimes folks that listen don't know the amount of work that goes into the show. And I think sometimes, while I'm very grateful and feel very supported and connected to our listener community, that sometimes the parasocial relationship portion can be a challenge, because you hear our voices and we're very vulnerable and open on our show. And we have a great team, so we produce a pretty polished product, but like, we're people. Like, we're just 2 idiots who are silly and drink some wine and get high and talk about true crime cases. And so we're going to mess up. We're going to get information wrong. We're going to maybe have opinions or takes that people don't agree with, and that's okay. We're very open to feedback. We have apologized. We have adjusted, our thought processes. Like, we've had our listeners.
Just people.
We're just people. We've had our listeners with us for now almost 8 years. So like, we're not the same people that we were when we started this show. And that I think that's an important thing to show. Like, we kind of talked about at the top of the episode, that growth and that change over the years, especially reading some of these stories that have so many similarities, and unpacking ways that we did see like the justice system before and how we see it so differently now. But yeah, that's always an interesting thing to navigate, especially like when we're meeting people in real life at shows or at conferences or things, or, events and things like that, where people are excited and overwhelmed and like really pumped to meet us. And I'm just like, I feel like my ego feels one way about that. And then the other part of me is like, I'm just an idiot. I'm just like a person just like you who just happens to make a living talking about my life and true crime on a show that like you listen to. I'm no different.
But you built your tribe over the years, right? Like, these are your people, right?
They
like,
really
the people
are.
Listen, yeah, and some people might not like, would you say, or whatever, but those people fall off, and what's left at the end of the day is your community, right? Like, they come for you. I mean, you could literally probably talk about going to lunch at the Piccadilly or whatever, and they would probably think it's hysterical. And like, my audience tells me that too. Like, I can talk about whatever. I just released an episode about it's a repeat, but still, it was one of my favorites. The lady on the Maury Povich show who was afraid of olives. Oh, that has nothing to do with true crime.
No.
But like, it was a fun story that I wanted to tell.
Hell yeah.
And my listeners are like, yeah, whatever. It was fun. You like it. We like it. So whatever.
Yeah. I think I just, want to express that we are so fortunate that our listeners give us a lot of grace. And if you are a consumer of this content, like, that's a great way to consume content, with like grace and humanity. And also, we take in your feedback. Like, we really do listen to you. And there have been many times when our listeners have helped make us better people. And that's something that I wasn't expecting, and something that I really appreciate. And like, that is welcome. And also, we're just human beings trying to figure it out, and we're figuring it out like on a microphone and broadcasting that out to the world. It's a really vulnerable thing to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying like tone police and, don't give us feedback. Like, we want the feedback.
Well, and even the bad reviews, like
I love the
those
bad reviews,
sting, right? Like, well, at the beginning they do sting, right? But we get a lot more. Normal people don't get as much feedback as we do, right? Like,
no,
we say something that's slightly off, and we're gonna get emails, we're gonna get bad reviews, and you have to build this thick skin to deal with all that stuff. But like you said, some of them are hysterical.
Oh yeah. I have one cross-stitched in my kitchen. The review is a 1-star review that says "bad" is the title, and then it says, "I hear they're playing this podcast on repeat in Guantanamo Bay."
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
That beats our cats one.
Yeah.
That beats our cats one.
Oh, true. Well, everyone out here is saying that Navigating Advocacy is an anti-cat podcast. So as someone who owns 2 cats, that's a really
I heard a dog in the
thing.
background, so
Yeah, clearly you hate cats.
Sorry about that.
If your dog barked, you hate cats.
If you guys hear, my Great Dane is snoring in the background.
Oh.
So yeah.
I love the pets. But yeah, I mean,
but we like the cats too. We just don't have cats.
We do.
Yeah.
We love them all.
Yeah.
This
And
making
gerbils
content also has a way of like forcing the creators to be chronically online. And so that, like, I am chronically online because I have terminal FOMO and I never want to like not know the joke. And I want to be in on everything. So it like fits well for me, but it is a challenge with my mental health. And, seeing, even though I take in feedback with like an open mind and a lot of grace, there are things that gnaw at you that are more like less about the content itself or the subject matter and more about, your voice or your physical attributes, things that like you are exposed to by being putting yourself in the public eye in that way. It's hard, and those are things that I unpack in therapy, and that's a challenge. That is a challenge.
It keeps the economy going, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. It's interesting that you point that out, because there was something that early on when we were Cults, Crimes, and Cabernet, we had made this obviously parody video of us at Sam's Club filling up.
We're a Costco family. How dare you?
Well, Sam's was closest. Okay. Filling up our cart with Snoop Dogg's 19 Crimes wine, because we thought it was like, it fits, like this is funny. And I mean, clearly we're not buying a cart full of wine for the weekend. Like we were like, this weekend's grocery order, check, and of course they're like, that's the most weightlifting those women have done in their entire lives.
Oh, fuck you.
Right. So those things, they do hurt. They hurt.
Yeah.
But, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's a comment, and it counts in the algorithm, I guess.
Right. It's the price we have to pay for putting out content,
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I don't know your experience with that, Javier, but like a lot of true crime podcasters are women. And so, it just historically.
I know I don't get.
Yeah.
I know I don't get.
We are subjected to comments in that arena, pretty regularly. And we have a social media manager, and like, we're not against deleting and blocking people that are just trolling and being fucking assholes. Like, our content is free. Like, you don't have to listen to it. You don't have to follow it. You can fucking move along.
People are mean.
Yeah.
People are mean.
People can be
mean. They go
mean.
for the jugular. And especially for women and vocal fry and all this stuff. Like it's just so, just don't listen to it.
Yeah. Move along.
Just go listen to something else, Like
I'm interested. Yeah. I'm interested to hear what's more difficult for Javier.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like reviews, or just in general?
Any of it.
Oh.
I just want to see a man's perspective, because I know what I have to
We
deal
need
with,
a man's voice.
We do.
Yeah, that's what the world of podcasting needs, more male voices. No, I think for me, I think our shows are so different. But for me, you're just asking me now, so I'll just tell you what's bothering me now is that I had this huge case fall through. And I do this every season. I'm like, I ran out of stories, and like, I have all these interviews, but not the main con artist. And like, I just like, I'm out of stories, I'm having that fear now, but everything always works out. Every time I have this freak out moment that I have no content, then it just like pours, and then I don't know what to do with it. But I just had this case that I've been working on for a year. And a lot of my cases, by the way, in terms of what's hard is that I release episodes weekly, but some of my cases on average take 6 months of reporting. Some take 2 years. This one that just fell through was a year's worth of reporting. And it was this sextortion case out of Nebraska that these women were getting targeted by, I'm guessing, a guy, right? Like he was targeting them, hacking into their iCloud, stealing their nudes, sending their nudes to their parents, to their employers on a daily basis. And I finished the story, and it was really awful what this guy did to them. And I right before I released the episodes, or I never released the episode, but right when I was going to release that episode, I called one of the victims just trying to see if the harassment was still happening, just to get like an update. And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm having like PTSD just talking to you. If you don't mind, I'd rather you not air the story because I changed my name, I changed my job, I changed my phone number, and things have finally quieted down, not just for me, but for all the other girls. And I'm afraid that if you air this, it might start back up."
Right.
And you know what? Without hesitation, I pulled it. Like, I don't care.
Of course. That's hard. You pour your heart and soul.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but also it's a very important story to tell because I think that people could learn a lot from it.
And you know what? There might come a time down the road when they're ready for that content to be released.
She said, don't. She said, just put it on the shelf for now, and you never know. It was really tragic because one of the girls during the course of my investigation actually ended her life.
Oh, my
God. And now we don't know if it was directly because of the sextortion,
right?
But it had to be a contributing factor, and that really impacted the other victims as well. I mean, it's just real life. I mean, these are real people's lives. And yeah, my show does contain journalism, whatever, but it's entertainment, and I don't want their lives to be exploited. By, yeah, and so I was happy to have this moment where I'm scrambling, looking for the next story because it's just not worth it.
Do you take how do you choose your cases? Like, do you take case suggestions? Do people reach out to you? Do you reach out to people? What's that process like?
Yeah, I've had a lot of, at the beginning, I used to like actively look for the story. Now the problem is sifting through the stories that come in from suggestions. And I get a lot of people like, "Oh, this guy, he was dating my elderly parent and he's, swindling her." And I get a lot of romance scams and a lot of different stories coming in. But the problem is that it's hard. Just because the story sounds juicy doesn't mean that it's worthy of a story. Like there needs to be some documentation to back up some of these claims. I can't just like run with somebody's story just because they have a good story. Like I have to do the legwork. And a lot of times I end up doing the legwork and nothing comes out of it, right? Because it's or they're just regular citizens. So I can't, like LaDonna, I don't know if your audience is familiar. I just did this like all summer long. I just did this. I don't even know how many episodes. It was north of many. It was a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
I did a lot of episodes on this woman, LaDonna Humphrey, she's a true crime podcaster, author, speaker, all this stuff. She has a very polished image. But she also has a 30-year documented history of harassing some of the people that either she's worked with or the people that she's writing about. It's almost like she was accused of creating her own stories, right? And for her, it was clear why I could tell that story because this is a person that has already put themselves in the public eye. And so they consider themselves a public figure.
And is in the same space that you're in, that we're in as true crime podcasters, undermining the trust of the work that shows like both of yours are out there doing.
Yeah, it just because if the things that they're saying about her are true, then she's poisoning the work that we're doing, right? Because then people really can't believe anything, right? But the reason why I felt comfortable pursuing a story like that versus some story that's a listener sent me is that she's a public figure. So the threshold for privacy is a little different for her than it is for like Billy Bob that, was scamming grandma, right? And so, I really have to, there is an endless supply of story ideas. I just have to do enough legwork on each one of those to make sure that it's viable for an actual story. So for me, the problem is like sifting through it, doing the legwork and getting it out. Like that's hard.
This is a question for both of you. Do you have teams that help you with your research or are you still primarily doing it all yourself?
Whitney's shaking her head. I cannot believe that she still does that. Like
we do it all ourselves.
I cannot believe that you're even editing yourself. I have a good editor if you need one.
We've used your editor once or twice, actually.
Oh, really? Cool.
I believe it's someone you recommended to us a long time ago. But we research everything. Melissa does the majority of our research because I'm the one that does the editing and the social media. So thankfully we get to split responsibilities a little bit. Yeah. And I'm the creative brain type of person and she's more of the type A logistics.
Right.
So research is her forte. Right? Yeah. Exactly. We're strong in our own areas. So it works great for us. But we still do every single thing on our own. Wow. Bookkeeping, all of it.
For many years. And I think I'm doing this almost 8 years now. For like maybe 5 of those, I was doing everything. Editing everything myself. And just recently, I had to get an editor because if I'm editing a show, then I'm not reporting on the next show. And so that saved a lot. And this guy, he's so good. You know, when he sends back a draft, I'm looking for things to complain about.
You're blown away every time.
Yeah, he's great. And so for me, that freed me up. And then this year, I actually hired 2 producers because I was working a full-time job and I couldn't work a full-time job, be a family guy, and like also produce this crazy, ambitious, like weekly podcast that, you know, it was just too much. So my producers, and it's taken me a long time. They're not full-time, but like it's taken us a long time to learn how to work together, you know, and they know what I like. And so that's been kind of fun collaborating. I've never done that before. So I'm kind of like in between, you know, Amanda and Whitney. So.
Yeah, I mean, it is the team that you have behind you, whether it's the team of 2 that are making the show or the people that you trust to bring in to the project. It's all so important. I mean, we could not make our show. We put out so much content. We could not make our show without John, our editor, and Andrea, our production manager. Like, they work so hard and they are such an incredible collaborative team. We have, you know, calls and meetings about just like pitching ideas and live show ideas and video content, like, because you do get burned out being in the creative space consistently, trying to think of new things and ways that you can connect with your audiences, and having even if they're not employees or you know, people that work directly with you, having community, even just like this, to bounce ideas off of and work together and get to know each other is so key to, like, not just being in this space, but thriving in this space and being able to bring what we bring to our listeners every week. So huge thanks to all of those support people. Seriously, we'd be dead without you.
Well, in full transparency, I think what has saved us is that we have met incredible people like y'all, like Josh, like countless others, that when we've come into a roadblock of how do we handle this situation? What should we do here? Have you ever seen this? We've created this community. It's so receptive to providing answers and solutions, and this is what we did in that situation, or the feedback, and just being able to have a sounding board of someone that understands what you're doing or what you're going through and willing to help. I've not met a single person in the podcasting industry, whether it's true crime or not, that's not been willing to sit down and have a conversation with you about how to improve or resolve your issue.
It is such a supportive community, for real. Like, obviously you're going to get your Boudays and Rogans and you could just steer clear. But for the, by and large, especially the indie podcasting community, it is so collaborative and so supportive. And it, like, we don't really care about the size of your show. Like, if we can make something happen, if we can work together, if we can offer resources or knowledge, like, we're gonna share it. And it's so fucking cool. Well, is this a good place to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsors and then finish out with a couple of really fun little topics and then call it a day?
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. We'll be right back.
Hey, music fans. There are some great concerts headed this way. Don't miss out on all these shows in Atlanta. Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. Gospel at Atlanta Symphony Hall. And Zach Brown Band at State Farm Arena. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Head to LiveNation.com to get your tickets now. That's livenation.com.
Imagine a place where the party or club night never ends, where mixes from the globe's most important and forward-thinking DJs are curated together into a never-ending set that is fully alive and happening around the clock every day of the year. That's Apple Music Club. Listen now on Apple Music Radio. No subscription necessary.
It's the Knix Best of 2024 sale, going on now at Knix.com. Don't miss incredible deals on life-changing leak-proof underwear, unbelievable everyday bras, and more from the #1 leak-proof brand in North America. Save big, like 30% off bras, 40% off leak-proof, 50% off tops and bottoms, 60% off swim at Knix.com. That's KNIX.com. Millions of women have made the switch to Knix's revolutionary period underwear, and there's never been a better time for you to try them. During the Best of 2024 sale, save up to 40% on super comfy, machine-washable, and stylish leak-proof undies. Plus, shop other year-end clearance deals like 30% off bras, 50% off tops and bottoms, 60% off swim, and more. Stock up on your Knix favorites or try something new during the Knix Best of 2024 sale. But hurry, these deals are only good while supplies last. That's KNIX.com. Hurry, the sale ends soon and sizes will sell out. Go to Knix.com. That's KNIX.com.
All right, we're back and we are now going to talk about our dream collaboration. So if you could interview anyone, a detective, a journalist, a witness, a criminal, who would it be and why?
Okay, my answer is not at all related to true crime in any way, shape, or form. But on our show, our monthly episodes of Gossip at the Corpse Cart, we have a segment called Coven Confessions. And every month we have a guest come on, and our producer, Andrea, pulls anonymous confessions that our listeners have sent into us, so, ranging from the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to them, the worst thing they've ever done, which is a great party game with your family. Go around the table and say, what's the worst thing you've ever done? You'll learn a lot. And then we have these guests come on and they cold read these confessions, and Andrea will pull them to be like connected to something in the guest's life, maybe connected to their career or where they're from or, you know, whatever. And we've had so many fucking awesome people on those segments. So let me clarify. I am not saying this to diminish any of the incredible guests that we've had to come on to read those. But my dream guests to come on and do that would be Drew Offwallow and Brittany Broski. I love these women so much. If you're not like a big TikTok girly, then you might not recognize who they are, but they're two creators. Drew Offwallow is Samoan, and she has built this incredible platform on really intersectional feminism, and like she just tears specifically white men the fuck apart on her show and on her channel. And she's built this incredible platform. She's so smart and she's so funny and she's so intuitive and just like a brilliant, brilliant person. And she's doing really impactful work through this like comedic lens that I think is so clever and makes it digestible while also like really taking in some important lessons on racism and misogyny. And it's just fucking brilliant what she's putting out into the world. And I would fucking kill to have her come on and read some of these confessions. And Brittany Broski is someone who like speaks to my autism ADHD heart so deeply. Her show is so funny. It's called The Broski Report. She has it on YouTube and podcasting. And she really just like nerds out about whatever the fuck she wants to talk about on her show. And sometimes she'll get really vulnerable. Sometimes she'll like do dragon sounds. I just like love her show. Listening to her talk like scratches something in my brain because I'm like, oh, your brain and my brain are the same. And I love it. I'm so comforted by her. And yeah, just another like fucking funny, brilliant, vulnerable, awesome, authentic person. I think it would be so fun to have an opportunity to work with either or both of those phenomenal women.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Check them out.
That's awesome.
So Whitney, you got someone?
I don't. So this is so hard because I'm a people person. I want to be with all the people all the time because I'm the extreme extrovert. That's why I have golden retrievers as dogs, because they always want to be with me, and that comforts me. So I don't know. The list is ongoing. Anyone who wants to come talk to me, come, let's just do it.
Yeah, Whitney, I had a hard time with this one too because I'm not usually like starstruck and I don't really want to meet any famous detective or anything like that. But, you know, while Amanda was talking, I was thinking, you know, Steve Hartman from CBS News, he's a journalist. I don't know if you guys know him. He does all these feel-good stories for CBS, and like a long time ago he used to do these everyone had a story segments on CBS, and they were like tear jerkers. I mean, you watch that, and I've always wanted to make people cry while like on my podcast, you know, like, and he always finds like the heart of a story, and like the fact that he could literally talk to anybody and find the story. I just want to like ask him a million questions. Like, how do you do that? You know, because I think I'm pretty personable, but there are some people that I talk to that I'm just like, I hit a wall and I'm like, yeah, but I do believe everybody has a story.
I love it.
I do wish I could improve on my interview skills because I just get so wrapped up in the conversation that then I forget to ask the questions I meant to ask. And then, you know, you're an hour and a half into your interview and you're like, oh, by the way, I also still have 20 questions to ask you because I've just wasted all of our time together.
No, that's okay. I think that that means that you're a good listener. And if you're listening and not just like asking your questions, you're going to that's where the real good stuff comes from. Like if you just like move on to your next question, you miss like a big opportunity, right? Like, maybe it wasn't what you were planning, but it's definitely that's where the gold is.
Yeah, letting that conversation flow is such a fun and intimate way to like not just create content, but you know, get to know and really connect with the people that you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's end it with one last prompt. All right,
I'm so excited about this prompt.
This is called the Desert Island True Crime. So you have one detective, one journalist, one legal expert, and one forensic scientist. It could be real. It could be fictional. Who makes up your team and why? Amanda, you sounded really excited.
Okay, I'll go first. Okay. My detective would be Clarice Starling from Silence of the Lambs.
All right.
I have complicated hormonal responses to Jodie Foster that guide that decision pretty strongly as well. So that's one. My journalist, Keith fucking Morrison. I have listened to The Thing About Pam so many times. It's a comfort show of mine. I just like want to be his best friend, and I could fucking listen to him read a grocery list and I would be so happy with that. I also just think he's like, he does something really unique in his journalism, and maybe people, you know, are into this and maybe they're not, but his kind of like subtle commentary or reactions or like the way that he can evoke responses out of people in this sort of like grandfatherly, like his voice is so iconic that it's borderline silly. And I feel like it breaks down some barriers for people when they're in conversation with him in a unique way. That's like, it just, I don't know. It just does something for me. I just think he would be so interesting to collaborate with. I didn't choose a legal expert because I didn't, but in terms of like investigation, I would want Lisbeth Salander from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the researcher. Oh. She can find fucking anyone, anything, anywhere. That bitch is a badass. And I also have complicated hormonal feelings about her character and about Rooney Mara in general. And then my scientist pick is Robin Williams' scientist character from Flubber, Professor Philip Brainerd.
Yeah.
Because that man can make something out of something incredible out of nothing.
Yep.
So that's my fucking
team. Great list.
That's my fucking team.
I want to watch this movie. I want to watch this.
Watch Flubber. Watch.
Yeah.
You've never seen Flubber?
No. I want to watch the movie with all her team.
Oh, the girl with the dragon tattoo?
No, I'm talking about like all these people.
Oh, in one movie?
Yeah, in one movie. I want to watch
somebody
that.
has to do a cool supercut edit of like Flubber, the girl with the dragon tattoo, and Silence of the Lambs.
I don't think anybody's ever mashed those up.
No,
ever.
but somebody creative can make that happen. So
right, this would make it a really excellent TikTok. Just gonna say that I'm taking note of that. That we're gonna put our dream teams together.
I need that mashup. I need the Flubber dragon tattoo lamb.
Silence
universe.
of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is it's no longer fuck, marry, kill.
No.
This is the new thing.
Yeah,
I love this.
This is it. Yeah.
Silence of the Dragon Flubber.
There you go. Oh man, that's awesome. How about you, Whitney? Did you assemble your dream team?
Yeah, sort of. But now I feel hearing Amanda's, I feel like mine is like all blatantly obvious.
Listen,
how do you follow that?
Not
up,
everybody
right?
can bring the unhinged ADHD genius that I bring to the table. It's not a comparison. We all are different. We have different skills.
That's right.
And I also went all fictional because
I love it.
That's just what I had to do.
Yeah.
So I feel like I had to go Jessica Fletcher.
Yeah.
Jessica Fletcher, because duh. I mean, for those who don't know, that's Murder, She Wrote. Go watch it. Again, child of the 80s. Oh, that's where most of mine come from.
That show is so fucking good.
I'm stuck on my detective between Sherlock Holmes and Morgan Freeman from Seven.
Oh, he was on my short list.
Watched that so many times as a child. Yeah. He's like ingrained in my brain. And who doesn't like to listen to Morgan Freeman?
Also, Angelina Jolie in Bone Collector is up there
That's
too.
a good one.
Yeah.
Also, complicated feelings.
So many complicated feelings. My queer little heart cannot take it.
My investigator's not truly an investigator, but she's someone that always wanted to seek out more information and would do the hard things, the hard digs, which is Nancy Drew.
I love that choice.
She was not afraid to go do it herself, and I love that because I am a feminist, so sign me up for all those adventures.
She's like a true crime starter drug, you know?
Honestly,
a gateway.
If you're a millennial in true crime, you had your Nancy Drew era. And your Babysitter's Club era, and your Boxcar Children era. I feel like that's the pipeline.
Yeah.
It is. It really is. And then my lawyer or legal expert isn't traditionally in criminal aspects, but I think if he took his tenacity into the criminal realm, he would get some shit done. And that's Harvey Specter from Suits.
Oh, okay.
That's my dream team.
I like it.
I'm over here thinking Josh would pick like Tom Girardi, which if you watch Real Housewives or ever saw Aaron Brockovich, you know who that is, but he's, obviously disgraced former lawyer Tom Girardi.
Yeah. Well, Whitney, I thought your lineup was awesome.
Yeah, you have an awesome lineup.
To watch. Yeah, I would totally watch that mashup movie too. So,
all right, Javier, don't blow it.
I know. I feel
pressure's on.
Okay. Well, I too went the fictional route because it's so much easier. But my detective is Adrian Monk from Monk.
Oh, hell yeah.
He was on my short list.
Yeah, he's just so neurotic, and I just love that actor. I loved him in Miss Maisel, and I just think he's so like friggin' funny. And so he would definitely be my detective. The legal expert.
That's a good pick.
And this one might be a deep cut because I don't know how many people watch this, but did you ever watch Boston Legal? And
yes.
Wasn't that awesome? And so my lawyer would be, it was tough to choose, but Denny Crane, which is the William Shatner character.
Oh my God.
I love that show. And if you haven't watched that show, that is such an underrated show. So go watch it. I don't even know where you could see that. But
that was an era of television, like Boston Legal, fucking like Crossing Jordan, Medium. What else was out? Was it Ally McBeal was out around that time?
Yeah.
It was like such an, like the 90s were wild, y'all.
When networks still had good shows. Yeah. Yeah. And so.
For sure.
So for journalists, I chose, and I'm cheating here, but just because I just want to see, I just want to work with this guy. I choose Ron Burgundy, Will Ferrell, Anchorman.
Oh. That's great.
I love it.
Oh, that's a great one.
I love it. I can't believe nobody picked Nancy Grace.
Anything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And here, just to make things interesting, my forensic scientist, I chose Walter White from Breaking Bad, even though he's not funny. Like everybody else is funny.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, that guy has like an answer for everything.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I'm just rewatching Breaking Bad, and there was this episode with him and Jesse, and like, I think they were stuck in the desert. Their car battery died, and like Jesse's like, "Come on, Mr. White, why don't you just, are you going to make like a robot or something to get us out of this situation?"
And he makes that generator and they're out there fucking, that's like one of my favorite shows of all time. My husband and I rewatch it almost every year. We so fucking love it.
It's so good.
It's so good.
That is a phenomenal pick. That's so good.
Yeah. Walter White, baby. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And I just picked that just because it's top of mind. I'm watching it now. It's such a good show. I think I've watched it like 3 times.
It's so fucking good, dude. Well done.
Oh, yeah. I think all of our lineups were pretty good. And I love this, by the way. I think we should make this like an annual tradition. And, you know,
I agree.
I think our overlord, Josh Hallmark, would be so proud of us if we continued this tradition. But it was so cool just to bring us together. We're such 3 different shows, and if you haven't checked out Wine and Crime or Navigating Advocacy or Pretend,
Please
check it out, because you're missing out. These are really, really good shows that have been around for a long time. They have huge audiences for a reason, and I think you're going to love it. And I hope that we gave you a small little taste of who we are in this episode. But yeah, go check us out. All of our info will be down in the show notes. And from all of us, I hope everyone has a great 2025.
Thank y'all so much. This was a blast. I love it. I'm in every year.
Hell yeah.
I would do this weekly shit on lives. This is too much fun. Thank y'all. Check everybody out.
Yes. Echoing everything that everyone has said. Huge thanks to Josh Hallmark for connecting us in person and, in this opportunity. And to our listeners, we love y'all. We could not do any of this without you, and your support means the world to us. So thank you for helping us close out what, was not an easy year, 2024. And I just want to put positivity, resistance, and strength and community out into the world for 2025. And we are sticking around, and we'll be here with you through all of the bullshit that is to come.
That's right. We're not going away.
All right, y'all. We'll catch you after the new year.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Wine and Crime. Our cover art is by Danielle Sylvan. Music by Phil Young and Corey Wendell. Editing by Jonathan Camp. Our production manager is Andrea Gardner. For photos and sources, check out our blog at wineandcrimepodcast.com. You can follow us on all the socials at Wine and Crime Pod. If you have questions, answers, or recommendations to share, email us at wineandcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It is the best way to spread the word. If you'd like to show your support and get access to all sorts of wine-fueled bonus content, visit our Patreon page. Cheers!
Welcome to Finally Caught, a true crime podcast from the hit North American and UK television series.
I saw the one girl with her throat cut and her abdomen stabbed and slashed.
It's a gruesome sight.
Bloodstains on the bed, wall.
This is just the beginning of the journey. Each episode details a horrific murder and subsequent investigation in order to capture the killer at large. To the newly released first season of Finally Caught, available wherever you get your podcasts.